trying to, I think, soften that, the real extreme differences that we're experiencing around here right now with sort of, we're happy to serve you any which way, but please know that these are the two categories based on your choice. Hopefully I'm summarizing that correctly, but I think there was a thought that the city, if the city could coordinate that and say to the businesses, look, maybe you decide what your two tiers are, but we're going to tell everyone that we're taking this two-pronged approach to how you interact with the businesses, and get city letterhead out there any which way. But I think some folks just felt like the world was told that we were ready, or the region was, and they're not necessarily feeling supported in that. So feel free to chime in. We also talked about there are people willing to wear masks that maybe don't have masks, and could we coordinate with the people that have been sewing masks to actually have them available in different places, that if somebody finally comes out wherever they first go, they can get that mask and keep it for the long haul. And I think there was also a question about, obviously businesses should open when they feel comfortable, but do we want to say, like, a lot of us are opening Memorial Day with these things in mind, like, please come be a part of, reviving downtown Ellsworth or something like that. I don't know what the phrasing is, but can we have one strong message rather than a bunch of businesses throwing out on their Facebook, here's what I'm doing, and nobody can keep track of it. So that's my summary, with probably my own little thoughts added as well.
That was perfect, Nicole. I think you captured everything
Great.
Really well. Does anybody else from the group have anything to add, just briefly? Okay. That's it from our group, Cara.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you both for all the work, and thank you everyone that was in that breakout session for showing up and voicing your concerns and your needs too. I am recording this second part of the call. I realized I can record the end part, the synopsis, which actually is probably the most important part of the call, and hopefully we'll have some folks who are in a position of being able to help along some of these ideas watch this. So moving on to marketing. Amy, if you are out there still and able to help us with a little synopsis of, and Heidi too, maybe Heidi can jump in and help you out a little bit.
Sure. Heidi's saying no, I can do it. Sure. I just wanted to quickly respond to Nicole's point about the masks. The library is helping to coordinate the volunteers who are doing the mask making, so I'm happy to share that information, and they're actually almost caught up with all the requests they've gotten. So I think this might be a great next step to make them bulk available for businesses. So happy to help work on that too. So we talked a lot about the big picture, thinking about what the role of our group could be in maybe communicating with the city, trying to figure out who can oversee some of these marketing efforts. And Heidi had a great point about, so it's both the individual businesses that are trying to market, but then there are some broader marketing initiatives that we have an opportunity to help with in terms of marketing safety, marketing the buy local idea. We definitely talked about some of the small businesses that have maybe some fears about shifting to online retail or shifting their business model. And how can we help to address that? How can we reach those businesses who maybe aren't as plugged in to part of Ellsworth or the chamber or the city? So how do we help bring them into the marketing efforts? And making sure the communication is consistent and the messaging is consistent, whatever the actual campaign is. We chatted a bit about who's leading the effort. So the city is working on a campaign about safe Ellsworth marketing. So we talked about how can we help to support those efforts and maybe kind of help to influence the direction that they're heading in terms of could they take a stronger stance on safety? Could they provide maybe some PPE for businesses that don't have them? So we didn't come to any conclusions, but that's certainly an opportunity for this group to have some influence in the city. Jana Richards is heading that initiative up. We also talked quite a bit about the idea of closing off Main Street. Maybe it's not feasible all the time, but maybe one day a week or maybe weekends. doing something big that has an impact that people will notice, because there's a lot that, you know, certainly there are a lot of marketing needs. There are a lot of small businesses downtown that could certainly use the help in terms of bringing people to their stores and social distancing that way. And Cara updated us on the Franklin Street project is moving along, so there will be some outdoor seating for, it sounds like, restaurants maybe on the Franklin Street extension. We also talked about, you know, if there is a second wave, some of this safe marketing initiative would have to go into the fall, maybe even into the holiday season. So encouraging the bigger, thinking more broadly about how to market Ellsworth. We talked again about Nicole's suggestion, the hashtag Wellsworth. We really like that. Can we leverage that a little bit more? Consistent signage and marketing, that's something the city is working on with the SAFE campaign. And Annie from Adult Ed said that they're looking into support for businesses who are struggling with technology. So that's another opportunity to tap into their resources as well. When we talked also about, could we create a list of the businesses that don't have a strong virtual presence and kind of coordinate that effort and connect them with the people who can actually help them. And maybe some of those businesses who don't have a virtual presence aren't plugged in as well, so they might not know that there are resources available. So how do we coordinate that effort a little more? And also sharing the success stories of businesses that have had really good luck with social media marketing, doing innovative things, and showing the businesses who aren't as tapped into that how simple it can be and how much of an impact it can have if you take a creative tack with your social media marketing. Anything that I missed?
All right, it looks like you captured it all, Amy. Thanks so much for that. And again, to all of you who were in there and getting your creative juices flowing about how we can make Ellsworth safe. I think next we will move to Elsie and Maria from Healthy Acadia on the safety efforts.
Great, sure, I can start and others can jump in. Sounds like there are a lot of parallels between our groups, sort of in the conversations and what we're talking about and thinking about. I think we definitely spent some time similar to, I think, in particular the first group, sort of talking about how much things have shifted between now and last Friday when we had the last conversation. I mean, even just that afternoon after this conversation with the shifts in the opening guidelines and from the state, and so we spent some time sort of reorienting ourselves to kind of where things stand now, and a lot of things we talked about last week, maybe shift in terms of kind of order of priority or importance. We certainly reiterated the fact that we're very supportive of the idea of the hand sanitizer and potentially hand washing stations. Matthias mentioned this with foot pedals. Pretty easy, I guess, to repurpose drum pedals, things like that. That's exciting. We also talked about a conversation, got a thumbs up on that. There's some conversations about masks, face coverings, and I'm glad, so somebody mentioned the question of needing more face coverings, and what I actually didn't get to bring into the group, we ran out of time, because we talked about sort of another aspect of masks, but we did get some outreach from somebody who's coordinating both some Hancock County and Washington County sewing circles, I think connected to the library, so similar to what I think Amy you were just saying maybe, but they emailed just today, I think, and said, we've made 16,000 masks, gotten them out to all of the healthcare providers who had been asking for them, and we have volunteers who want to keep making masks. Do you want to be on the list? Do you want to help distribute, et cetera, et cetera? So it sounds like they're ready to go and make more and distribute more. And so we could think about maybe how to jump right on that. I don't know, Cara, you may have some guidance. So they said, do you want to be on the list? And is there a drop off and distribution point? I mean, I don't know if it's easiest for maybe Heart of Ellsworth gets on the list and distributes, or maybe each business. I'm not sure what makes the most sense in terms of how to get on the list, so to speak. But actually, that might connect to one of our action steps that we talked about. So we can come back to that. But another action step we talked about. So we talked about these reopen kits potentially that had come from, I think Tom had initially suggested this, providing businesses. Obviously now it feels like we're just, the ground under us is always shifting. So obviously there are businesses that are already reopening. So is it exactly a reopening kit, or is it more about just continuing to try to figure out exactly what businesses need, and if there's any role that we can play, we as Heart of Ellsworth, partners, et cetera, to help facilitate that. And so an idea that came up today was from Betsy was potentially doing a survey, doing an online survey to businesses. Maybe we'd have specific items, would you want X, Y, Z? Are there other things that you want, other things that would be helpful before we jump to creating kits that may or may not be the most useful? So that's something that I think we might jump on early next week, if that makes sense. If there's any sort of feedback about that, we'd welcome that. And then we would follow up. So part of that survey could be, would you like cloth coverings? So we could do, part of the survey could be, would you like cloth coverings? If so, how many? And then we could maybe compile that number and then put in an order, so to speak, to the sewing volunteers. So that could be one way to expedite it. And then we just have to figure out how to easily get it to everybody, or have a pickup spot. I know there had been conversations about possibly having, businesses with possibly an interest in having having extra face coverings, either for purchase, or if the volunteers are willing to keep making them, potentially for free or whatnot, at the front of businesses. So if somebody walks in without a face covering, to say, oh, here you go, like, come on in, pop this on and take it with you. So that could also be maybe part of the survey, is we could say, would you be interested in having a stockpile for distribution? And if so, how many? So we could, I'm sure the numbers could add up, but if they made 16,000 in 7 weeks and want to keep going, then there may be some capacity. So that was the face coverings. The other conversation that we had a bit about, which was something that I brought from some meetings that I've been having with some infectious disease experts and thinking about safety and whatnot. They were really pushing that face coverings are great, sort of in lieu of anything else, and we should keep moving that forward, especially just people interacting, people both having face coverings and interacting along the way. But for particularly people who are closer in contact with individuals who may not have face coverings, like in a restaurant, if a server is serving, or even whatever, if that's happening, more interaction, especially in a restaurant when a person's going to take off their face mask to eat, obviously, if they have one, or any other kind of close interaction, that the person wearing the face covering, especially if the other person isn't, is really not well protected, and especially in close contact and with sustained contact. And that even just a simple surgical mask, like the blue and white ones, that are not like the N95, that are not the ones that aren't not taking away from the supply that healthcare workers need of like the really tight fitting masks, that they are available and they can be bulk purchased, and that there could be some good education around that, and encouragement of getting those, maybe particularly for frontline workers who are interacting with the public closely. So there's that, and we could maybe include that in the survey. And then, but also there may be a good amount of education to be done around that, because of the messaging we're getting, sort of pushing the face coverings for non-medical folks. So there's both of those in terms of masks. There was, Thais had brought up the seeing in other areas a lot of engagement with the local police department, who, sort of walk around and maybe kindly remind people of various rules and whatnot. So and maybe these conversations are already happening between the city and the police department or whatnot, but the question was raised about potentially engaging the police more as, sort of friendly support for the various safety rules and education. And let's see, that maybe, so we talked about sort of a survey immediately, some bulk buying. Oh, there was more conversation about bulk buying of other items. And so maybe the survey can help hone in on what items would actually be most beneficial to bulk buy and what items people are feeling that they've got covered. And then the other thing we talked about was that last week we were talking a fair amount about kind of potentially compiling guidelines and ramping up those guidelines or whatever. And you know, even within this week, more and more either business associations, trade associations are developing their guidelines. More guidelines are coming out from the CDC and the state. So that's a moving piece too. And so again, maybe then the survey will help us know, you know, do businesses feel like they've got what they need in terms of guidelines for their specific industry, or are there things they're looking for? Because we want to be helpful, but don't need to reinvent the wheel if people have what they need for those specific items. And that might, I think that, you know, there was definitely a fair amount of conversation just about safety overall, you know, and I think along echoing what some other folks have talked about, and that, and to keep our eye, probably not this subcommittee, but to keep our eye on the bigger picture items around, you know, ramping up testing and tracing and all of these things that reduce community spread or ideally prevent or reduce in the big picture, which will keep our businesses safer, and also more sustained. The last thing we want is a community outbreak that sort of forces everything to shut down once we've, you know, invested in ramping up businesses, and a month later everybody has to shut down. It's sort of worse than the alternative. So certainly I'm mindful about keeping our eye on the big picture to make sure that we don't end up, you know, each business, you know, every business in Heart of Ellsworth might do things perfectly and community spread might happen, forcing businesses to close, and that's the last thing we want. So I think that's, anything else from the group?
One thing that I just want to say, it seems like Betsy has sort of offered to take the lead on working on a survey. Heart of Ellsworth has a subscription to software, and we've had a bit of a success rate at getting folks to take surveys. So Betsy Arnson and I will be working on that. And if anyone is interested in helping to work on the survey, which I think is going to help us with data that maybe we can provide to the city of Ellsworth to hopefully get them to see that this is something that community members who are showing up for meetings week to week in double-digit numbers are wanting to see and want assistance with, and want really more than anything maybe a plan around. So I think we are, Betsy and I, and if there's anyone else that wants to work on that, feel free to just write in the chat, and the more of us there are, the less work that each of us have to do. So so please feel free to speak up to help with that. And I also will say that if you decide that that's something that you can't take part in, one way that you can support without signing up to do any work is, once you see the survey out on social media, please share it on your social media platforms so that we can get as many people to reply to this simple survey as possible, so that we can get enough of a broad scope of what's happening. So thank you, Elsie. But please, all right, so we've got Sarah. Thank you, folks. All right, great.
Cara,
Yeah.
while you're talking about that, so I noticed that we don't really have anybody from the city here this week. So I was just kind of wondering, do we know when their next meeting dates are for things, or how we need to time our survey results, and should we invite them specifically to something next time? Would that be helpful? I'm just thinking out loud, kind of.
Yep. And just in response to your first question, Sarah, I see your hand, so thank you. Every week they are invited to this session, and they do have the invite and have all the information. I will give a shout out. I mean, like I said before, this is being recorded, so I will give a shout out to Dale Hamilton. He has been on here more weeks than not, and so that's great. And we have had David Cole on here before, and Jana's been on, I think, a couple of times as well. So we have had a little bit of city support. I am a little sad that now that we're kind of at this action point, that we don't necessarily have any of them on here. However, Amy Wisehart is technically from the city because it's the Ellsworth Public Library. So Amy is on here as a city person, if part of the municipality. So, and again, this is all being recorded. So I think that what the next step is to get this recording into the inboxes of all of the city councilors and David Cole and Jana Richards and maybe some other city officials, just so that this information is easy for them to access if they are so interested in hearing what all of you folks have to say. And I will make sure that that happens. I see that as my responsibility to do, and I will make sure that that happens. But I think we've got a couple of people that have offered to help with the survey, and I do see that as the next step for us. So I'm glad that happened. Are there other questions? And Elsie, I hope I didn't cut you off. I don't know if you were finished or.
No, I think that was perfect. I did see also Peter said help in distribution of masks. That's awesome. So we'll remember that. And
I mean, while we still have the J&B Atlantic building,
yeah,
unofficially, that could be a place where they could come together. I would not mind even delivering them to the downtown stores and counting out what they need. I have time. And I also, but I also want to mention, we talked about masks and how many people are not using masks. As a matter of fact, you brought up policemen. I have seen the police without masks, very close, not social distancing from people and not wearing masks and talking to people without masks. So how do we get people to wear their masks? I think it's really important. And do stores, can they actually enforce it? Can they say to a person, you cannot come into my store without a mask? Because all the stores have them, those signs that are open now, but people are, go to Walmart. It's gotten worse and worse. I mean, when you look at May 1st and May 15th, May 1st, almost everyone had a mask on. May 15th, I was there yesterday. I would say at least 60% of people did not have a mask on.
I just wanted to add, I saw Sarah was speaking, but she's muted. Absolutely, a store has the right to ask its customers who are coming on to their private property to follow any rules, shoes, shirts, masks, whatever it is. And if a person wants to be on your property and not follow the rules, whatever they are of your establishment, then you are entitled to call the police if you need to. I think we don't want it to get that way, but that is the law, and it is your right as a private property owner.
I mean, I spoke to someone at Hannaford's once about a manager, and I think they're afraid of bad behavior from the people who don't want to wear masks.
Definitely.
They're afraid.
Yep.
The last thing we want is confrontation going on with business owners and customers. Like, we have to avoid that. People are going to try to make political statements by whether they wear a mask or not. And I think we have to just be really proactive about, if you have a mask on, this is how we interact with you as a customer. If you don't have a mask on, this is how we interact with you, and provide them options, right? We don't say, we're not going to serve you, put on a mask and create a confrontation. We say, here you go. No mask, curbside delivery only, order by online. Like, we have to give them that option. I think that's the safest route. And as far as law enforcement, you're not breaking the law by not wearing a mask. So law enforcement is not going to want to get involved in this. I can guarantee it.
Well, they don't even want to wear masks.
Well, different story, but you can call law enforcement if you have somebody that's become violent in your store or, won't leave the property, but that's setting up, it's just dangerous. I think we have to try to avoid that.
We do want to avoid it, but I will say that I've seen police posting that in other communities, that if someone is belligerent in your property, that you should call.
Absolutely.
It's not for you to deal with that circumstance on your own.
Absolutely.
But we obviously want to avoid that.
Yeah, I was actually the one in the safety meeting to recommend potential police presence in downtown Ellsworth, and I meant it in a sort of safety protocol way. Like, cops used to be on the beat and in the neighborhood all the time, right? That's what we were told. Was that grandpa grew up and he knew the cop on the corner, like that sort of presence. Having the police already downtown is not a bad idea. Having them walk around, be more
Great
visible.
idea.
That's what I was getting toward. And if we could entice them to wear masks in public, all the better. I don't know how we do that, and just entice people to wear masks in general. Obviously, yeah, on the more libertarian side of things, as I said in our safety meeting, you won't be able to get through to those people, but you may be able to get to the people adjacent to them, their friends, the people who would normally wear a mask and probably were wearing masks on May 1st that have since taken them off. We got to make it cool. We have to do, you know, the video with the grand. That would be great. We could make, you know, cool videos of all of the downtown businesses wearing masks and, you know, interacting safely with each other. We have to change the mentality of, you know, one of you have to wear a mask to it's cool and it's the responsible thing to do. You know, I don't know how we do that, but anyway.
Yeah.
I do. I got this great idea. We need at the farmers market, and anytime there's a gathering, maybe a couple times a week, we get a T-Rex costume, we put a mask on them, we give them a basket of masks, and they dance up and down the sidewalk. I'm thinking Nick at the Grand is perfect for this. I'll go half on the T-Rex costume because they're just cool anyhow, and I'll make a mask to fit it.
That's awesome. And I was also gonna, that's very, even much cooler than what I was gonna say, but also like if we could get police, the idea of the police presence, it being a positive presence, like you said, I mean, what if they had a bag of masks in little baggies? And so when they're saying, oh, do you remember that this is, you know, this is the, you know, this is the rules in Maine, and here, would you like one to take home with you, you know, especially for people who are visiting like that, that might be a different way to approach it.
Yeah, I'm let's see, I'm capitalist to believe that like Matthias just said, someone's going to make it cool. So all of a sudden they're already being branded and made super, I mean, oh my, yeah, it's going to happen because everyone likes to make money. So it'll happen.
Hey, I have a couple things I'd like to just say very quickly, if it's an okay time. Yep. The two things that I think are important that I just need to say to get off my chest are that I feel that it's very confusing as a city that we're going to say, Governor Mills, the state of Maine, we as a city of Ellsworth are able to take care of our own businesses. We feel like we're ready to open, but yet we're policing other people in their masks and whether they wear them or not. And I find that incredibly confusing, I guess. I feel like we put out a statement that we are able to run our own businesses as we see fit. Therefore, we don't need to be mandated by the state of Maine. And now we're saying that it is coming across. I'm trying to word this correctly so that I don't sound incredibly un-PC, I guess. But I find it very contradictory that we're saying that we can operate as a state within our and know how to operate our businesses safely, but yet we're telling other people how to police their own families, and I find that very contradictory as a business owner. I think that it's very important as a city to have signage of what we expect, and I like that. My number one concern as far as the enforcement and everything is concerned is immediate need about what we're going to do this weekend and next weekend. I think having conversations is really great. But we need, I as a business owner who is open and who has been down there all week and who will be open next week, I need some answers as to, we're talking about this a lot, but you're right, the police aren't wearing masks. They're not going to come down and police anybody. I had an altercation with Peter, the window washer, this week that was horrific. And I called the police and they did nothing. So that's not a viable solution because they have too much on their plates. I really think as local business owners, we really need to take the next 5 days as a whole of people on Main Street in Ellsworth, Maine, to take it upon ourselves to come up with the messaging ourselves because we're opening and the city doesn't have the time to do it for us. And I think that they're coming, and it's very important that we stop talking and we start printing signage. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Sarah. I do just want to sort of put a little bit of a flag in that very quickly and then move on that the city is working on signage. But I think that this whole group also has the added wanted layer of some help with supplies that would help the messaging be a reality. And if I'm wrong, anybody should speak up, but that's sort of the summary from the overall group that I have been hearing for the past few weeks, is that everybody wants that kind of support. And we all are looking toward, it seems to me that we are all looking for answers and for help from the city to make things safe and to make the messaging clear and to have the supplies to back that up. So if you all agree with that, maybe a thumbs up will allow our messaging, a big thumbs up from everybody that agrees with that, I guess. If you don't know how to do that thumbs up, hit the reaction button at the bottom of your screen and hit the thumbs up. And I think that your message will be loud and clear, heard by the counselors that will hopefully watch this video. But I thank you all for your thumbs up votes on that issue. And I also thank you, Sarah, for being willing to state your perspective and your experience on Main Street. So in the interest of moving on, and also for us to end on time, I'm going to turn the reins over to Shannon Byers, and we're gonna do the last part of our agenda.
Awesome, thanks, Cara. So here, we did this last week for the first time, and it was really helpful as we kind of think forward to next week and what we're gonna plan for that meeting. It's the plus delta, right? Where each person says one thing that they liked about today's meeting, and then one thing that you'd like to change for future meetings. And so a couple of options. One, you can raise your hand, or you can put a thumbs up, or you can put something into the chat. But this is really important for Cara and I as we talk about, what's the meeting look like, and how can we best serve you guys on the call. So anybody want to start?
I had one thought. I think I understand what you just said. I had one thought I wanted to, and it's not anything mind blowing, but I know we have Chris on the line. So I wanted to plant this seed. Someone's making money. So there are people that are making a ton of money right now, and what you hope is the people and the corporations and the companies that are making just incredible money because of the situation are keeping in mind contributing back to the communities. And if they aren't, I'm full support of legislation or taxes that get added on, some sort of taxes. Like the grocery store industry is just killing it. So wouldn't it be great if the grocery store industries voluntarily contributed a tiny percentage to get restaurants going again? So that's just my top of mind thing. Maybe that's a discussion, but wouldn't that be great?
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else? Chris,
I was just going to say, to be clear, there is a fair amount of sharing back, I think, that's going on. The grocery folks in particular have been contributing dramatically to the food banks, understanding the need there. The banks, Bank of America is contributing back all the fees that they're getting for PPP loans because, beyond the cost of administering those loans. So I think there is a sense of common crisis and community here that's operational, Nick. So I just want to make you aware of the fact that I think there's a lot of that positive action is going on.
Thank you, Chris, for that.
Anyone else? Plus Delta, Heidi?
I'll go. Again, I think this was great. Great format. I'm loving it. Thank you for this. I guess the one thing I'm thinking that might be helpful next time is maybe in going over all the notes and all of that, maybe picking out some action items or ideas that are particular to each group that they could work on for the next meeting. I think we might be at that point where getting out of the thinking about action items and all that, but actually like drilling down on something, and whether it's advisement that we want to give to City Council from our perspective, whether it's how to get something done, like, you know, Peter, I think, Peter, didn't you volunteer to get in the T-Rex outfit? Is that what I heard? But no, but seriously, like, really just if each group had one thing for that 45 minutes, or we had a half an hour, right?
Yep.
That was the other thing. Maybe if we had 45 minutes for one item that we really drilled into, so we could come out with something concrete, I think would be helpful. So, but this is great, and thank you very much.
Heidi, I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. And hopefully everybody won't be scared away by that and not show up to next week's meeting.
Hey guys, there's one more thing that I wanted to add that is not, I just feel like, I feel obligated, I guess, to share this. And kind of looking at everybody's names, I didn't see lots of downtown business owners that are that are going to be opening this week and next week. But I think it's really important to share, because I don't know if this is public knowledge, that Kathy, who owns Northern Lights Dance Arts down right there, right by Finn's across from me, I'm using her as a working example because she was trying to be super creative with dance classes, but she's had people reporting that she's not operating under said executive order and has had complaints. And so I just wanted people to be aware that that's starting to happen, and that we need to be really aware of that, because as we open ourselves up to exposure, we open ourselves up to challenges, and it's happening very quickly downtown. There's very few of us that are currently open. Sugar Mags and Timmy at the Creamery are open, but other than that, we're all staying closed because we're a little bit, we're very hesitant. We've all kind of talked.
Thank you, Sarah. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, we're hesitant because people are reporting, and I think it's important people know that that's happening.
Yep. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, so I think the plus delta got hijacked this time. I will admit, like, plus delta in any meeting is, I hate it. I really don't like doing it. So I feel guilty putting it on you guys, but it is important. We do want to hear. So feel free, email Cara, say, hey, can you try this at the next meeting? Or, Harry, I really like that. Because we're trying to figure this out as we go. And your feedback is really what's driving this. So reach out to us, even if you don't want to do it here publicly.
This is Elsie. I mean, I'm happy to jump in. I also did see there was some in the chat box, so that could also be encouraged if that feels easier to do. But I thought it was excellent organization, and I'm very happy to continue to support it. I think trying to do some work in between also is a great way to think about things. So, you know, like what we had talked about, doing the survey work, and then we come back and see where we've gotten. Obviously, it's a lot to add to our plates, but obviously, you know, the work is very important. So no particular changes, but really appreciate the organization, the coordination. And I would say, just in terms of the question, like, for example, about the face mask, just real quick, like, I hope it seems like we're mostly all on the same page, and that, of course, I mean, I think the reason the questions about the face mask comes up, or like the community compliance with face masks or whatnot, is that, you know, I think a lot of the plan, like when the governor or when the city or whatever says we're ready, they're saying we're ready under these guidelines, right? So it's like it's safe to open because we have all of these protocols in place, and that includes the face coverings. And so it's very reasonable for a business to be concerned if people are coming in and not complying with that, because that's going against what we said is safe for us to what we said is the kind of foundation of what we need to be safe to reopen. So I think it can be sort of aligned in that way, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Elsie. Yep.
Thanks. This is great. This is always great. I just want to say something that could be added or thought about, is that we're all very busy in our lives and in our businesses, but we're all on this call because we want to contribute, we want to help, we want to be a part of the conversation. So I think it would be helpful for me to think about, and it might be helpful for this group in general and our town in general, to have some of the moderators and leaders on this call reach out to either all of us or individuals with actionable items, and see if some of us want to volunteer, whether it's, crunching the numbers when they come in from the survey or any actionable items that could be taken on by individual people. Because often when a bunch of people are talking, and even if we all think an idea is good, it comes down to somebody's got to take point on it. So that's all.
Thank you, John. I think that action item is great. And one action item I think that all of you certainly can help again with is, publicizing the survey. We're going to be working on that probably starting this afternoon. That was a very easy action item. And all of you getting it out to your people is going to get 10 more people to reply to it. And I think that information then being put hopefully pretty quickly in front of City Council, in front of other community leaders, I think will be helpful to get to tease to the top these action items. So in the interest of wanting to end on time, I just want to open the floor one more time. If there's anyone else who wants to say anything, please unmute your mic and go ahead and do so. And if I don't see,
I guess I'll add one last thing. Yep. The grant is closed for quite a while. We're, fingers crossed, optimistically September, October. We're working as a team to create virtual content. We are happy to share anything. Just let me know. I've already shared Fogtown's trivia night, and I peruse all the library stuff, and you just have to send it and we'll share it. We have over, I think, almost 7,000 followers on Facebook. And Facebook is just crazy for the grant. So we're happy to share anything, help in any way. You can piggyback on any of the events we're doing. That's how we can help the community, because our mission is to create social interaction. And even though we can't be open, we're pursuing the mission as passionately as we can. So don't hesitate to ask. Even we're happy to help.
Great. Thank you, Nick. All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great weekend. I appreciate you all showing up and doing some of the work. It's great to see everybody. So thank you.
Thanks so much.